Welcome back to a different kind of video that we do. It's these game breakdowns, and we haven't done one in a pretty long time, and I'm super excited to jump right into it with some good buddies of mine. Who is that?
I'm Mike, his number one.
And I wish I could be Matt, but I'm just Travis.
Oh, damn. That's unfortunate.
Right?
Mike, you're tied with Matt for being number one. How about that?
That's fair.
Okay. But yes, this is going to be a game breakdown of Kingdom Hearts 3. We did one on the original Kingdom Hearts. One of the reasons is because we all had a pretty big attachment to that game, and we all had pretty positive things to say, a couple of negative things, but these game breakdowns usually go where we kind of analyze it, look at the bigger picture about what it was trying to do, then get into some of the nitty-gritty about what we really liked about it, what we think could possibly be improved. Anyway, so the first thing I'm going to start as more of a general question on, overall, did you enjoy the game? Like, it doesn't have to be, before we get in the nitpicky, like, what did you like about the game? And if there's something that you didn't like, did you guys like it?
Well, if we're not being nitpicky, then I'll say overall, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. There were parts of it that I really did not enjoy, but
I agree. We'll get into that.
I think for the most part, it was definitely one of the weaker Kingdom Hearts games, but it was still really fun. As far as the gameplay goes, I think it was one of the best in the series. I think it flowed very nicely. And I guess gameplay is the beating heart of every video game, and so it nailed what was most important. But if I had to give it a rating, I would have given it a solid 7.5 to 8 out of 10. So
I would say 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10 was where I was at. What about you, Travis?
I had a lot of fun playing it. I obviously don't have as much investment as you two in Kingdom Hearts because I played the original. And then I bought the remix and 3 at the same time. So I decided to just start at 3. So I have now played the first and the last game of Kingdom Hearts, and there were some holes that I had to try and figure out.
It probably looked like Swiss cheese in Travis's brain, like, what is happening?
But
this character shows up. Who is that?
Who's that? Probably somebody from... The funny thing is I don't even think Kingdom Hearts 2 would have explained it. It's the side games that have so much of the story content, which is dumb.
I would argue that a majority of it Kingdom Hearts 2 would have been nice, but you would probably need to have played, or at least known what happens for 358 over 2 days and Birth by Sleep to really have a good grasp of what was going on.
I know who Roxas and Aqua were.
Yes. And they are important.
And they are important. But there are also plenty of people who I'm like, should I know or care who this is, or are they now introducing it to me now? But
they were pretty specific on how they did that, so yeah, they wanted you to care.
Oh well, I by the end of the game I knew who they were. But like we said, the gameplay was great. Some of the sword abilities kind of made certain fights easier than they probably should have been, but it was just always really fun to use them. So
yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing that we can unanimously agree on is that the gameplay of this game, just tackling the horde fights, going through it was pretty solid. Again, on the easier side, I will argue that this is the easiest gameplay that I've had in any Kingdom Hearts game, but still overall very, very fun. I've played up to this point now. When we're doing this breakdown, I have done Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, 3, Birth by Sleep, and Dream Drop Distance of the ones that I've played and beaten. So, out of all of them, I will say that Kingdom Hearts 3 had my favorite gameplay out of all of them. I will agree with you though, Mike. We will be getting nitpicky overall. Because the other thing because overall, yes, we did enjoy it. We thought it was a great game on the surface level. But when we talk about certain things, let me talk about one more positive before I go into a different negative. And I want to mention the Gummi ship now. I actually really liked the Gummi ship. And the Kingdom Hearts 1, I thought it was pointless. In Kingdom Hearts 2, I thought it was better. Still pretty pointless, but in this game, I actually really enjoyed the Gummi ship. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the open world aspect and the more freedom of exploration, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know if there's a certain thing that I can pin down, but it felt more purposeful to do the Gummi ship missions now.
Huh, that's interesting because I kind of felt the opposite. I mean, really? My issue with it was it felt very optional to me in that you could pretty much get from point A to point B a lot of time without having to do any fights with the Gummi ship, except for a couple spots where they had mandatory little boss fights, but it was just kind of an open world that didn't require you to do anything in it. I think I would have liked if there was a little more purpose or a little more incentive for exploring, because like you said, the game was easy. So in my head, there was no item or anything that the gummy ships could possibly give me. So I had no motivation to go around exploring and seeing everything. And so the parts of it that were like, oh, you need to go over here in the gummy world, I was kind of like, can't I just fly to the next world? It felt like it could have been so much more if it was given some purpose. I just feel like they didn't give any... They made it better without giving me a reason to care that it was better, if that makes sense. Like,
no, it does make sense.
Yeah, it was more fun, and I'll give you that. Like, it's way more fun than Kingdom Hearts 1, but I feel like it was equally pointless. Like, I didn't see why I should be invested in it.
I did do a little more of the side content one up, but I do agree with you that the rewards were kind of butt. Like, it wasn't really good. So I will concede that. But overall, I actually just enjoyed the Gummi ship. Maybe because I like doing some of the horde fights. I like doing a little bit of the side things. But I do overall, like, I think it's almost unanimous that this is the best Gummi ship out of any of the Gummi ships in the previous games. But overall, I just think that it steadily got better, but it still wasn't at the point where I would love having it in another game. I think they just thought, okay, we had it in the first Kingdom Hearts. We have similar things in other Kingdom Hearts games, so let's just keep it in. I think that it really wouldn't be... I think about this, and it's like, would it be missing if it wasn't there? And I probably would not care if it wasn't there.
Right. Well, that's why, of all the Kingdom Hearts game, I'd say Chain of Memories had the best, because it didn't have anything like that at all. You just go from one world to the next. I mean, I enjoyed the dropping that Dream Drop Distance had.
I did enjoy that as well.
But even that, again, like, it was fun, and Kingdom Hearts 3 Gummi ships were fun. It just... It didn't feel related to the gameplay, and even when I was doing that, I just like wanted to get to the next world, you know?
Yeah, there was a disconnect. It did help that there was kind of like those jet streams that let you get there faster.
And I used those constantly.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard thing, too. It's like, you know in your head, oh, the next world is, you know, the Monsters, Inc., and I get to meet all those characters. It's like, you don't want to do the Gummi missions. You want to get to the Monsters, Inc. world, you know?
That's true.
I think it's hard for them to make a Gummi ship, because you would have to make the Gummi ships as fun as the game itself, and that's pretty hard to do.
Yes, and the gameplay itself was already so good. I will say the Gummi ship doesn't compare, but I will say I still did really like the Gummi ship, though.
So
I would have
basically
I
what
think
our
it would have been.
Oh, sorry. But what our critique is that the gameplay should have been less fun to make the Gummi ship better, right?
Basically.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
the game should have been downgraded to the point where the Gummi ship was the star of the game.
I mean, an easy fix for me would have just been if they simply would have said, like, there's a special Keyblade you get if you have this level Gummi ship, right? Something that translates to the actual gameplay. It's just most of the Gummi ship prizes are things to upgrade your Gummi ship. So it feels like it's its own self-contained game. I think had the Gummi ship related more, it would have been better. Like, oh, there's a special Gummi Keyblade you can get. Like, I would have been all over that then, you know, but
yeah, I know if
they
you
didn't do
broke
like
a bunch of meteors and stuff, you'd get the more rare materials to upgrade your Keyblades later. But again, my Keyblade was working just fine enough where I'm like, I don't feel like shooting at a meteor for an X amount of time.
I don't know what the items were. Maybe it's like Damascus or something, or Damascite or something. I don't remember what it was specifically called, but there was a way where it could tie in, but it was a very small tie-in. There wasn't enough that really would help you out in a different game because you did the extra side stuff for the Gummi ship. Mm-hmm. So I would agree with that. Moving on to a different thing, and the one thing that I would say that is one of the ways that this game shines the brightest in my mind is the newer Disney worlds. And this is, I'm going to preface this by saying I do not dislike the other worlds that Kingdom Hearts had that was featured in the games. But holy crap, just having newer Disney worlds that weren't in other games was freaking fantastic. The fact that you had the Tangled world, the Monsters Inc., the Frozen world, every single one of those was... my mind was blown the entire time. I think, and I'm just trying to think on the positive side now, and I'm going to say this. I think it's a little bit of a benefit that this game got delayed to the point where they're able to incorporate these worlds. That's me trying to be optimistic, but again, I would have liked it earlier. But if you're thinking with like glass half full, the fact that it didn't come out until now and we could actually see these worlds more realized, I think was a huge, huge blessing for me. But I loved the newer Disney worlds that they put in. Maybe it didn't have the best connection to the main story, but I enjoyed every single world that this game put.
Yeah, no, I agree. What I like too is none of the worlds felt gimmicky. the way that like Little Mermaid and Atlantica did in Kingdom Hearts 2. Like every world was like a full, complete world, which I like. Because even Big Hero 6's world, it was not as open worlds, but it still didn't feel like it was a gimmick level. It put you in the world and you got to explore the vastness of everything. So I enjoyed exploring all the new worlds. There was no world that I remember exploring that I didn't enjoy. Because even Olympus, which has been in literally every single Kingdom Hearts game, was brand new. It looked completely different. You got to explore this city and you got to explore Mount Olympus, and so even that was a lot different. It felt like a brand new world. So I'm glad they took that approach with it, where either it was a brand new world or they did something different with an older world. Nothing felt like it was something I've explored before, which I really liked. And every world felt so much bigger. Like in Olympus, going back to that example, in a way you explored what you've done before. Like you go to the Colosseum, but there's so much more than just that. I mean, there's so much more expansiveness in it, and so I think that's
you're
what I really
saving the
enjoyed about
citizens from like collapsing buildings and whatnot. Like you're not just going through the trials of destroying Heartless and becoming junior heroes. Like you're actually actively like saving the citizens and then going up to fight the Titans. That's badass.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really enjoyed about it. In every level, even though I said there's no specifically just a gimmick, every level had their own gimmick that was incorporated into the overall world. For example, like Pirates of the Caribbean, I loved the ship combat in it.
That was one of my favorite parts. I couldn't stop playing during the Pirates of the Caribbean part.
Well, and what they did well was they made it very easy to learn, knowing that you don't want to spend a lot of time learning it, you know, because you're not going to spend your whole time doing ship combat. So they make it very easy to pick up. You're not spending a long time learning it, you know. So you pick it up fast, you start enjoying it right away. There's no big learning curve to any of these gimmicks, which I think really worked out in its favor because it was a game that had a ton of variety, like the robot suits in Toy Story. They're very easy to learn.
Mech suits.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason we love it so much is because they weren't frustrating to use. The game made it very simple to use, so it made it very easy to learn. So even though you only have that gimmick for like an hour, you're basically an expert at that gimmick within like 5 minutes. You know, you pick everything up really fast. And so I think it did a good job of making everything easily accessible. It would have been very easy for a part of it to be frustrating and obnoxious and hard to learn, but I think they covered their bases well and made the game very easy to pick up.
Oh, I would absolutely agree with that. I will say, obviously, the big highlights in my mind were the Toy Story world for one, with the mechs and whatnot. I thought that was overall fantastic. When you actually assembled going into the air vent where you assembled one of like the cactus from like Final Fantasy, I thought that was a really cool touch.
Oh yeah.
They had like those kind of little details that were pretty cool to see too. But otherwise, yeah, that was a great. I don't think there was any world where I can point out and be like, I didn't really like this world. Every single world, like I didn't think I was even gonna like the Frozen world as much. But the second I was in like that ice labyrinth, I was like, this is actually pretty cool. I like this a lot. So I never felt that any of the worlds were a weak point in that regard, which I would say about other Kingdom Hearts worlds. Like some of my favorite worlds in like Dream Drop Distance was the one where you were in like the music book, like from I think it's from Fantasia. But there's other ones like I didn't really care much about what was one of them? Like I loved the grid, but I didn't like as much well, I guess I did like Hunchback in Notre Dame. Anyway, I felt there's weaker worlds in other games. That's all I'm saying about that.
No, absolutely.
So what about you, Travis? Yeah.
What?
I remember Travis did not like the Little Mermaid world for Kingdom Hearts, the original. That was pretty. It
just wasn't as fun as the rest of the levels.
How many times? How much did you want to punch Ursula in the face after fighting her?
All I wanted to do was punch her in the face during the fight, and it wouldn't let me.
Yeah, when I did it on my own, I just made sure to play very far away and just use magic. Because like I'm not dealing with that.
God, it was. Anyway, what was the question directed at me?
Oh, I was just saying, like, did you have a favorite world, or what did you think about the other worlds, and how do they compare to like Kingdom Hearts?
I really enjoyed the Monsters Inc. world. I don't know why.
Yes.
Because, just
we scare because we care.
Yeah. Because I don't know, like I grew up loving. I can probably quote all of Monsters Inc. I have it on VHS. I still watch it because I'm a child. But just like the reimagining of Goofy and Donald creep me out so much that I'm like, yes, I want them to be real life monsters now.
The moment when Boo pointed at Donald and just goes, Mike Wazowski, I died. I was like, this is it. This is amazing.
Exactly. Because, like, there's just
because he had one eye.
because there was just so much charm in it. But there weren't, like, any gimmicks that I remember from that one compared to, like, the mech suit and being able to ride Baymax around and fly.
Yeah.
So, like it felt like a normal level, but, like, there was so much care that was put into, like, making it the Monsters, Inc. world that I loved it.
I think every single world in this game, while none of them were really, like, surprises because they revealed, I think, almost all of them beforehand, I think they were all beautifully well done. I think, again, any single one of them that you can think of, like the Tangle World, even like the Twilight Town where you get to cook with Remy from Ratatouille, everything that they put in this game, it seemed to have like a nice purpose when they did so. So I really enjoyed that. I will say this though, now that we're going to be a little more nitpicky, that's kind of a change in our mind. Connecting the storylines, and this is probably going to be more for Mike here. How do you think they did between all the Kingdom Hearts games and with some of the worlds and trying to bring it into the grand finale? I mean, just how do you think they did in terms of connecting stories? Because I don't know. I'm not feeling that as one of their strongest points. The worlds were great, but an overall narrative of the Kingdom Hearts quote-unquote trilogy, I felt it was weak.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I mean, you know, I don't know if we're going to talk about the ending yet. The ending just did a terrible job of wrapping it up. I didn't like how things ended with Xehanort.
Yes.
I feel like it felt like it was very, I don't know if fanfic is the right word, but it felt like it was kind of fan serviced in the sense that it just felt like it was this grand reveal of a bunch of different characters. Like, oh, here's Ventus, and now here's Aqua, and it just felt like it was moving from one to the next. I feel like they strung it together in a way that made sense. I think that's something that I was okay with. Like, the story makes sense. It made sense how they ended it compared to what they were doing before. I don't have an issue with how it ended in terms of, like, I don't have any serious questions like, that makes no sense with what they were doing. Because the reality is, Kingdom Hearts never really made 100% sense anyway. If we were going to sit here and dissect the story, I think that would be more of a dumb reflection on us than the game. Because it's not meant to be taken super seriously. So I'm not going to sit there and like nitpick and say, oh, they didn't explain this much well. Because they've never really explained things perfectly. But it did feel very like fan servicey. The whole part where in the Keyblade graveyard where everyone like dies and Sora goes to like that afterworld, it just kind of felt like it was like, okay, this is a bit much.
That part was weird, dude. That was like Tetsuya Nomura was just like having a weird dream and just writing down everything on a notepad. It's like, let's do this. Like, do you really want to do this? Like, yeah, it's gonna be great. It made no sense. You're sorry, that might be a little bit of a spoiler. But the world after when like Sora again in the Keyblade graveyard after the tornado thing and whatnot, and everybody has a weird tragedy that happened to them, and then it felt, I didn't mind it. It felt too out of place for me. It's like I still did it. I still was like, oh, whatever. It's just a part in the game. I'll go back to the main part. But it did feel like it didn't have as much of a tie into how Sora was coming back together to be stronger to fight. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's what my point, I guess, is it feels like it was written by you or me, you know?
Yeah. It didn't feel like it gave Sora a bigger, like, a boost to his character for him to go back in and, like, really fight the Heartless. It was just like, all right, cool, I did this, and now I'm back here.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the path that the games were on, it felt like they would have been taken in a different direction. Like, it almost feels like the Kingdom Hearts 3 was written by someone different that had their own different take for the way Kingdom Hearts should be.
Yes.
It didn't feel like it was following the same path. I feel like this one kind of diverged a little bit. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing if it's early on. But I think the issue is that it did make things feel kind of out of place. So I don't even know if the ending was necessarily good or bad. It just was so different from what you're expecting that it almost feels like we're kind of waiting for the real ending, you know? Like, it's like,
still
okay,
waiting.
Yeah, okay, we saw that, but when's the real ending gonna come?
Yeah, because like then there's those people playing the little chess game or whatever the hell board game they're playing. They're like, oh,
yeah, young Ericus and young Xehanort.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, this is like, let's play again, and then you're like, is there more? And then it just kind of rolls credits. You're like, was there supposed to be more?
Yeah.
Well, before we go into like the very ending for that, like I'm just like let's try to keep it first on like connecting the storylines from like the other Kingdom Hearts games before.
That's
so, like,
your choice.
They tried to like funnel everything because they tried to link in certain parts of the world, like where Vanitas pops up in like the Monsters Inc. world, finds Ventus hiding in Sora, and there's certain parts where like you finally dive in to save Aqua, and then you go and you find where Ventus is sleeping, stuff like that. They try to do certain things to really connect them, but it's a weird way to try to, because you want the focus to be on the world and enjoying the characters. Like in Monsters Inc., you really want to be hanging out with Sully and Mike Wazowski. In Tangled, you're hanging out with Rapunzel, and all of those things were very focused on their world. But like in the bigger picture, I felt like it because of the fact they didn't like do more in terms of the Organization 13's plan. Like they had cutscenes, they had events where members would pop in and affect the world, but I felt like in terms of like an overall narrative, there wasn't enough to try to like jump into the finale of like what's happening in the Keyblade Graveyard. It's like, all right, we're throwing all of these characters in here. Let's hope something happens then, and they like it. It's like I'm with you, Mike. It seems kind of fan servicey. It seems like they didn't really think about how their paths would really cross. And I think that it was better done when you're doing those individual fights, like when you're helping out a fight like Young Xehanort or with Ventus and Aqua, and how you join with Kairi and Axel to fight off Saïx and Xion and stuff like that. So it did feel rushed in my mind, and again, maybe it's because of the fact that I feel like there's too much that they tried to set up, that no matter what they tried to do, unless they made like another 10-hour part, it would make perfect sense in our mind. Like, so I'm with you. I'm kind of just accepting it. Like, okay, it was fine. It was part of the game, but I was like, it did feel kind of odd because it was just so many characters being thrown in at once, and it was a lot. It was definitely a lot to try to unpack in your head.
Yeah, well, because I think the issue is they were basically making this game a sequel to Kingdom Hearts 2, Chain of Memories, 358 Over 2 Days, Birth by Sleep, Dream Drop Distance, Coded. Like, they're trying to
make fragmentary passage.
Yeah, they're trying to make it so it answers questions from all those games. It's like one sequel for 10 different games. It's like that. It's impossible to do that in an organized way. And so what happened is kind of what we saw. Like that part you were mentioning where like all the bad guys come together. It felt like Sonic Forces. You know, like that scene where like Eggman shows up and it's like Metal Sonic. Oh, yeah, then like all the bad guys are there. Like it just kind of felt like, oh, okay, all these guys are just together now.
Yeah, it's just they've all teamed up and
yeah, and they somewhat made sense of it in a way, but there were a couple guys on the bad guy team that I was kind of like, wait a minute, this doesn't really add up all the way.
Yes, I completely know what you're saying there. I did like the fact that they kept it like certain segmented, like if for the Kingdom Hearts 2 section, like you're fighting with Riku, which made sense to Kingdom Hearts 2. You're fighting members that were pretty prevalent in Kingdom Hearts 2 with Birth by Sleep. Like you're not fighting like Ansem in the Birth by Sleep with the Birth by Sleep character. So that part was nice that they kept those separate. But again, it was an impossible task. They were throwing a sequel to all of these games into one, and it's just like they threw what they could at the fan and saw what stuck. That's all it was.
Yeah, and
in my mind.
And going off that, since we're kind of on that section of the game, I despised how easy the boss fights were when you were fighting like 3 of the organization at the same time.
It was a joke, man.
It was
all you had to do was spam magic.
Yeah, and it's like you're fighting 3 bosses that in the other games were so hard. It's like fighting 3 of them at the same time should be insanely difficult, and it was such a breeze. I'm like, where's all the techniques they've used? Like, they all suck. Like, it was very anticlimactic because that felt so cool. I'm like, dude, I gotta fight all 3 of these guys at once. Like, I was ready for an intense fight that was gonna take me hours to learn, and it was like, oh, it was a one shot that I barely got hit on. It was just, cinematically, it was intense. The gameplay didn't match that, and I think it made it almost comical in a way. Like, these guys don't feel like big bosses.
No, they definitely did not. And especially with like those big area of attack moves that you would get throughout the game too. Probably helped out a lot. I would agree. Like every part of I still liked it. I still thought it was really fun to bring in all those fights and try to do it simultaneously. But I played on prod mode, like 7 or 8 levels under level for the recommended on what it would be. I had no problem with any of those fights. The only fight I think I lost on was Xehanort in the last phase of when like the city was sorry, this might be a spoiler. Should have prefaced it with that. With like the city changing and at Scala ad Kylum, which if you guys want a fun fact, that's Latin for Stairway to Heaven. But yeah, that's like the only, like on the last phase of that fight was like the only one where I died, and it's because I didn't do my I just threw a heal out way too fast, and it was the only time like when I actually died, and it was like, okay, this was dumb. I would go back at it. I just used a shot lock, and he was dead. It's like the whole game. It was fun. It just wasn't difficult like some of the other Kingdom Hearts games were. Like I would have actually preferred to die a few times and be like, all right, I need to focus up. I need to actually focus on his attack timing. I need to parry it. I need to be smart with my magic usage. And I was like, nope, I can just run over here, heal, back to spamming fire, elixir, keep going. It's like it was almost too easy in that vein.
Well, yeah, it's like, because I was watching you when I went back and saw the replay for the Kingdom Hearts 2 and you faced against Xemnas.
Oh, yeah, I died like 4 times.
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun. Like, you feel like you accomplished something when you beat him, you know?
Yep.
Like, how much of a joke would it have been if you would have beat him in one try taking, like, 2 hits? Like, it would have felt like a boss. Like, I think the part of it is it's hard.
Yeah, I definitely earned that last victory.
Yeah, I agree.
Boss,
but, yeah, I mean, in terms of connecting all the storylines, I think it's almost an impossible task. But moving on from that, now, because we're talking about the final fight, at Scala ad Kylum, I want to say, though, the atmosphere for the final fight, I thought was beautiful. I thought it was gorgeous, and I thought that the final fight, again, cinematically, definitely delivered in terms of what I was looking for that fight. So I was happy that at least ended with an intense fight. The overall ending and what like Xehanort's like final like part of the game was. I was kind of disappointed that they didn't have the voice actor from Birth by Sleep, but that's just my personal preference. I think that at least in terms of that final fight, it was very nice, but yeah, it kind of was just seemed like Xehanort gave up too easily in my mind. I don't know. Am I the only one that thought that? It seemed like all it took was Mark Hamill as a voice actor to calm him down. Right,
but isn't that what it seemed like? It just seemed like he didn't seem like the kind of guy that you could just talk things out with, and all of a sudden things are all hunky-dory. Like, I don't understand how things got settled the way they did.
Yeah, Mark Hamill, man, he just has that magic.
I guess so. It just seemed like Xehanort was like,
I think it was Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill was Master Ericus in Birth by Sleep, so.
Right. Well, in all the things that Xehanort did that were evil, I'm like, it feels out of character for him at the end to be like, you know what? I am the bad guy. I want to be good. Like, it just... What? At what point did he ever show that he might have that kind of character arc?
He wouldn't show remorse? What the hell?
Yeah, he seems like the last guy that would show remorse for anything. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like Xehanort at the end. Like, I don't know. It was just... It felt weird. Like, that's not what the final overall boss should be. And it would have been different if maybe they gave Xehanort more of like a sadder backstory, or if he showed a little bit like, I'm doing this because it's what must be done. But no, like the whole time he just showed like, I'm doing this because darkness is awesome, you know? Like, he never once showed that he had any sense of guilt in it. It was odd. It didn't feel like how it should end.
It's so true.
I don't know.
Yes, I agree with that. Xehanort, he had his moments, but again, not without the same voice actor and whatnot. It seemed like he gave up very easily. I mean, he did have multiple phases for the fight, whatever. And again, cinematically delivered. Again, it seemed certain things were out of character in that. And talking about characters and going into one of our last points, talking about playable characters. When we talked about it before, I remember we mentioned that Mike wanted to play as Kairi. I wanted to play as I don't know if I said if I wanted to play. I think I wanted to play as Axel or something like that. It didn't really seem... I think you also wanted to play as Roxas. Besides the fact that we were able to play as Aqua for a bit, like, there really wasn't a ton. Maybe... Did we play as Ventus? I think we might have been able to play as Ventus for a bit. I can't remember. I think maybe it was just Aqua. But in terms of playable characters... we played as Riku for a little bit. I remember that too, when you're in the Dark World. But in terms of playable characters, I did wish that they had more. Mm-hmm. Because of that final... this will be later on. I'm not sure. This might be a separate video talking about like the DLC where they're actually showing the other characters as playable in the final sequence that we were talking about. I wish there were certain times where Sora can be like, where they could have been like, hey Sora, it's okay. This is our fight to have, and then you could play as like as Shion or as Roxas or whatever, and you can choose one of them, and then you're fighting. I would have really hoped that was a possibility, and maybe that's why they're having it as DLC because people gave them feedback on it. But playing as Sora as all those fights left me a little bummed out.
Right. Yeah, I was hoping this game would be less of Sora's our main character and more of Sora's the main guy, but we also have all these other characters that we're going to really showcase. Because, like we were talking about earlier, the game was trying to wrap up stories from so many different games.
Yeah, from like 6 or 7 games.
Yeah, that I
even
feel
like
like
a web browser game.
Right. So I feel like because of that, it should have put more focus on the characters from those other games, like Ventus and Aqua and Roxas and Riku. And I wish it didn't feel so much like it was Sora's story, everyone else is just living in it,
Yeah.
I wish it would have been more about everybody else. I mean, I guess that's kind of a minor complaint. Complaining about that to me is like when people in Smash Bros. Complain that, well, I didn't get my character in the game, because it's like, yeah, I can say I wanted it, but to be fair, having Sora as the only playable character should be the expectation,
That's true. That is true.
So I don't think it's fair to knock the game for not having more playable characters. So I guess it makes me sad I couldn't play as like Kairi and Axel and all them, but I wouldn't hold that against the game because my expectation was Sora was going to be the playable character. Anything else would have just been icing on the cake. So,
I was really hoping that I could have played as the armor Terra. When he popped out, I was like, oh my gosh, do I get to play as? No, that's disappointing because there's so many hype moments where I was really excited. I was like, is this about to happen? And then it's just, nah, you're still Sora. Yeah. Which is fine. Sora was still fun to play as. It's just like, again, there's those certain times where you wanted to play as a different character. And again, it didn't like ruin the game by any means. But now the last couple things that I'm going to point out, and this is one I wanted to save for the end because I know this might be polarizing, but because we talked about how Kingdom Hearts has very cheesy voice acting and how we usually give it a pass. I'm not giving this game as much of a pass on the voice acting. I don't know if you guys are the same.
Well, I mean, I'll let you talk about it first. Voice acting, I love comical voice acting. I don't mind it as much, but I do want to hear what your opinion on it is.
Okay, there's certain times where in Kingdom Hearts, I just kind of accept where they're just like Roxas's heart is in my heart or something like that. Or you have people like, oh, Roxas was our friend, right? We gotta go save him. And there's certain times where I feel like those lines can be delivered with such impactful times. And I know Kingdom Hearts wasn't known for the most strongest voice acting in times. And when maybe it was the fact that I got my hopes up when I saw certain trailers because Haley Joel Osment, the time when he did that scream with Sora where it's like, Sora, I know you don't believe that or whatever. And he shows like all this inner conflict that he just lets out in the scream. And I was like, oh, he nailed that part. The voice acting's gonna be good. And then I heard Aqua talk in certain points. Then I heard Riku talk at certain points. I'm like, Riku sounds like a wuss. Riku doesn't sound like certain things just sounded so disconnected from like my predeposition or whatever that I had of him. And it was more prevalent when I went throughout multiple characters. Like Axel didn't feel like Axel when I heard him talk. Kairi, I think, was all right, but like Aqua seemed off. I know maybe it was different voice actors, but even when I would try to give passes for them not having the best voice acting, I felt like the delivery it lacked emotion, you know what I'm saying? And it's weird for me to say that about Kingdom Hearts, which usually is a game that has a lot of emotion, but it felt like there was just lines that they said that felt empty to me. And again, I know I'm not this is me being nitpicky. It definitely didn't take away the whole experience. Again, I still really like the game. I did not like the way that a lot of lines were delivered in very impactful moments. Overall, it was fine, but in impactful moments, it lessened my excitement.
Yeah, I have extraordinarily low standards for voice acting.
Okay, that might help.
So for me, it's like I barely pay attention. Like unless it's because even if voice acting is really, really terrible, usually I get a good kick out of that just because it makes me laugh. This game was by no means something that I call a legendary voice performance. I wouldn't put it up there with some of my favorite voice acting moments, like the new God of War, not new anymore, but the God of War game that recently came out, and
God of War 2018.
Yeah, games like that where the voice acting like just it shakes you. This game certainly didn't do that, but I don't mind. The game has always been cheesy to me. I've never I have an emotional connection to the game, but I'm not I never sit there and watch these cutscenes like, oh my god, I do need to show my friends the light, it's never it's a game for kids and it has cheesy dialogue, and I think that's the charm of it. So I almost feel like voice acting that's not perfect doesn't really take away that charm. It almost kind of adds to the cheesiness of the game.
Yeah.
So for me, I never cared. Honestly, I didn't pay attention much to the voice acting, which tells me it either wasn't perfect and it also wasn't terrible. It was probably just an average performance, you know?
Yeah. I did like the fact that I'm pretty sure they did bring back Jesse McCartney for Roxas. I did like that.
Yeah.
There's those little touches. I did recognize that Tom Hanks wasn't Woody, and I don't think Tim Allen was Buzz, but I think their voice actors were fine. I don't expect every game to be exactly perfect and have those exact same voice actors, but overall, I will say that in impactful moments, I was not liking the voice acting because it didn't deliver in certain ways that I guess I wished, because I had that expectation from seeing that trailer, I think. Mm-hmm. That's what I think it was.
Yeah, no, I get
Travis,
that.
did you have any opinions on the voice acting? I'm not sure if you really focus on that either.
I don't... Basically, I can tell the difference between, like, good and bad voice acting, but I'm not going to let that dictate whether or not it was good or bad cutscenes, because so many games have just the worst voice acting ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, if they had a good moment, I'll be like, okay, good. And then if it was bad, I just kind of laugh it off. Kind of like more like Mike, just because when I do my own voice acting, I know it's not great.
No, Travis, yours is perfect. Don't diss yourself.
I don't know. A lot of people were saying that I could have chosen better voices. I just listen to the voices that are in my head and let them come out.
That's a very way to do it.
So I don't think that their voice acting took away anything from me. I'm trying to just think of a moment specifically that I'm like, man, I would have felt something, but because you said it like you were a teenage girl, I no longer think Riku is cool.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, like,
I'm just talking Riku always trying to be emotional when I expect angst, a little more angst out of Riku.
a little more shadow. A little too much
shadow.
Sonic in the shadow.
Yes, absolutely. Oh man, I want Sonic. Anyway, not Sonic like the game.
Like the shakes.
Food.
Yeah.
Good shakes. But yeah, so I will say, in terms of, I'm gonna give some of my final thoughts and see what you guys say. Overall, I still think that it was obviously a pretty solid, like 8 out of 10 game. Not my favorite Kingdom Hearts game, definitely not my least favorite. But overall, I thought it was a really solid game. I did love the worlds, and I did love exploring the worlds. I think that because it was an impossible task to have a good finale, that was a little weaker in my mind, and so I was okay with it not being everything that I thought it was going to be. But it was pretty concise. I thought it was pretty simple in terms of even the fact that I did it on proud mode. But yeah, I think that overall I enjoyed it. I thought there were certain parts that could have been better, but I do like the fact that it wasn't a rushed product. They did polish it up a lot. The gameplay just felt good to play. It was easy. Certain horde fights did feel like you were just kind of mashing X, but I mean, like, or cross, I don't know if that's the correct one, but I think that there's certain things that this game did very, very well that does get me excited for other Kingdom Hearts stuff in the future. I can understand why lifelong fans would be disappointed because they set themselves out on an impossible task, and I don't think that if somebody expected the world of them because of how long they took, I can understand why they would be disappointed.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing is, especially considering the fact, as you kind of mentioned there, that it took this game like 12, 13 years after Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. The expectations for this game were absolutely through the roof. This game would have had to been the greatest game of all time to meet people's expectations, because that's kind of the vibe it gave off, where it was like, oh, we've been 13 years in the making for this. You've been waiting so long. We've built like the biggest, most expansive world. It's like, it was just supposed to be like this phenomenal game. It's impossible to live up to those standards, but it did a decent job of it. I don't think it failed. It's just its goal was impossible to reach, and so I think what it did attain was enough. I mean, it satisfied me. It was an ending. It showed off all my characters.
It was solid.
Yeah, the gameplay was the best the series ever had. Cinematically, it was gorgeous, and I loved exploring the new Disney worlds. It did a good job of not being excessively corny, and it did a good job of not wasting time Like some of the older games, I felt like exploring some of the worlds was a waste. Every world in this game felt like it had a purpose that tied back to the main plot of the game. So I enjoyed the game for what it was. I didn't have any major issues with it. Like we talked about, I didn't like the ending. I feel like it didn't feel like an official Kingdom Hearts ending. It felt like a fan wrote the game. But outside of that, it was a lot of fun. And, you know, I don't have too many complaints to make. It was an ending to the Kingdom Hearts trilogy that they were going to have. And, you know, we'll see the direction that it goes in moving forward, because they've already confirmed there will be another Kingdom Hearts game at some point. It'll probably just follow a different plot line.
Oh, dear Lord.
But, yeah. So
2030, here we go.
Trilogy.
Right? I know. We still
Kingdom Hearts
will be like
2030.
40 years old. But I don't know. I liked it. It was fun.
Yeah.
Let's
Anything, Travis,
see.
before we
I
wrap
think
this up?
the biggest complaints I had about the game was when I was just randomly walking around, and then I would hear either Donald or Goofy go, "Oh, look, like a treasure," and I'm like,
We didn't even
"Dear
mention the ingredients
God,
part. What?
Where is the Mickey Mouse head?" And then I discovered, what I had to do, because I was, like in the Tangled level, and I was like in the stream. They're like, "Oh, look, one of the treasures." I was like, "Okay, cool." I had to then completely leave the area I was in, climb up to the top of the tower, and then the creek itself was in the shape of a Mickey Mouse ears. And I was like,
Yeah, the
are
rocks-
you
the rocks
effing
there, I
kidding
remember
me? I spent
Yeah, the Lucky
15
Elm, they were
minutes
annoying.
just walking around looking for anything.
It's funny.
Donald and Goofy did get annoying by saying, "I think this is a great place to find some
Oh my
ingredients."
God.
That was
Yeah.
annoying.
That
annoying.
was. I think, going off what you mentioned, Travis, I totally cheated on the hidden Mickeys, but I realized I had way more fun cheating, because what I ended up doing, because I ended up looking up screenshots of all the hidden Mickeys, right?
Right.
And so what I ended up doing is I saw the screenshot and I'm like, all right, now I got to go in this world and find that picture. And it was way more fun that way, you know? Where
It was way
like,
more fun when you didn't have Donald yelling at you saying, "Hey, look for a picture of Mickey Mouse."
Yeah, and like you look around and there's no fucking Mickey anywhere.
Anywhere.
But it was more fun seeing like, oh, there's a Mickey with 3 rocks. I need to find 3 rocks. Oh, though they are. Now I have to find the angle that, like, I had way more fun when I had some direction with it.
Yeah, no, that would be enjoyable. But just having Donald or Goofy just go, "Hey, look, a treasure," and then it could be literally from any angle, and it could be anything. It's just kind of in your vision right now.
Well, yeah, and that's what pisses you off is you're like, Donald, how the hell did you see that? You have to look at the bird's eye view when you're on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, how did you see
Yeah.
that was a Mickey?
Well, he
I
is
was
a wizard.
standing on the
you
Mickey
know.
Mouse symbol. I was
guess
standing
so.
on the Mickey Mouse symbol. It's like, oh, there's probably a symbol around here. It's like, come on, man.
I know.
I'm standing on it.
Some of the secrets I did like. There was the, I don't know if you guys ever saw, like, those flawns that were hidden in each level. But there's, like, these secret minigames that are hidden in each of the different worlds.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did play those, yeah.
Yeah, I really
fun.
loved finding those. The first one I found on accident, like just kind of randomly stumbled onto it. I didn't even know they existed in the game yet. And I was like, whoa, this is a really weird secret. And so that kind of made me want to explore the worlds in more detail to find the other ones.
Yeah,
so
I did like
liked little
collecting
things
those.
like that. Yeah. So yeah, I liked a lot of the side stuff they had. It just, I wish some of it had a little more direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the Lucky Emmons was a good thing in concept, had good rewards too.
It did have good rewards.
For sure.
Yeah.
So yes. So, I think we're going to end at that unless you guys have something else to say.
No, I think I said my piece.
Yeah. I think the game was more built toward my group of I didn't play these much, so it's more just a really fun new game.
I think, yeah, it was an impossible task for the lifelong
Yeah.
fans, but people who just want to enjoy the game will always enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Right.
So, that's going to do it for our game breakdown. I know there's a couple of spoilers. We'll make sure to put in the title that there were some spoilers. Hopefully you enjoyed. Obviously, what we said before, we did enjoy the game, and we hope you did too. There's a comment section below. Please use it. Please tell us what you guys liked. Maybe if you guys would rate it, some of the things, go ahead and respond to some of the questions that we asked. So that's gonna be it for us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.